In the most powerful city in the world, words are the guideposts to the past and to a nation's values. Most presidents leave behind a few indelible impressions that stand the test of time.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Barack Obama, our nation's 44th president, was a best-selling author before he ever set foot in the Oval Office.
There are only a few presidents that I would consider writers. Thomas Jefferson wrote. Theodore Roosevelt wrote. Barack Obama wrote.
So what words will define him? 6 speeches might shape his legacy. From a brash young state senator,
there is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America.
to a president grappling with turbulent times.
Justice grows out of recognition of ourselves in each other. That my liberty depends on you being free too.
The most memorable speeches can be the result of careful planning and intensive writing.
The president's a writer. If he had 48 hours in a day, I think he'd probably dispense with his speechwriting team and do it himself.
But just as often are written under extraordinary pressure, in the face of chaotic, unexpected events.
I was scared for him because I couldn't imagine what I would say.
I was a wreck before that speech.
The page has turned on the presidency of Barack Obama. What will history remember? This is the story of a writer-in-chief and his defining moments. In more than 300 years of American history, few speeches have achieved immortality. Two that have, President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, were given a century apart.
Barack Obama is one of the closest students of Abraham Lincoln and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I know, probably the closest. He's read about them, he's studied them.
I think the kinship had something to do with writing, with words, with oratory. I mean, Lincoln too believed that words were central to his leadership. Lincoln too believed that he could have a conversation with the American people and that they would really listen.
It's the perfect role model for Barack Obama because Lincoln used words to move people, and Barack Obama has been able to do that too.
Barack Obama launched into our national consciousness as the keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention in 2004.
Barack Obama was not a household name in 2004. He was merely a state senator from Illinois.
And he had never given a speech in front of an audience as large as the one he gave at the Democratic Convention. And I was a nervous wreck for him.
While we were there in the bowels of the arena, this dough-faced, crew-cutted young guy sheepishly came up and said, we have a little problem.
That young staffer was Jon Favreau, a junior speechwriter for Senator John Kerry, the Democrats' presidential nominee. Favreau was carrying a message that Senator Kerry liked an Obama passage so much, he wanted to use it in his own convention speech.
This was my job, as they were hazing me at 21. And he sort of looks at me and gets up to my face and is like, "Are you trying to tell me I have to take out my favorite line in the speech?" And I think I lost consciousness for a few seconds.
Nobody wanted to tell Senator Obama that this prized line from his speech would come out. But I mean, what could be more flattering than to have your line stolen by the nominee?
Maybe some just see us divided into those red states and blue states, but I see us as one America, red, white, and blue.
Given the fact that they'd given him the opportunity to speak to 20 million Americans, it was probably worth the trade.
The next senator from the state of Illinois.
Despite losing one of his favorite lines, Barack Obama was about to become an overnight sensation.
Tonight is a particular honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya. He grew up herding goats, went to school in a tin roof shack. Through hard work and perseverance, my father got a scholarship to study in a magical place, America.
When he actually delivered it, I thought it was like nothing I'd ever heard before, because he did away with a lot of the cliches and applause lines that politicians of both parties always gravitate to, and he told a story.
I stand here knowing that my story is part of the larger American story, that I owe a debt to all of those who came before me, and that in no other country on earth is my story even possible.
It was a speech that sort of redefined patriotism as the ideals and values that anyone can hold and become an American.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America.
And you can see in his pattern and pacing that he is starting to feed off of the enthusiasm of this room.
There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America.
That message of unity, I think that speech probably personifies who Barack Obama is. He is somebody who doesn't like ugly, clamorous finger pointing. He's constantly pushing the idea of hope forward.
The pundits like to slice and dice our country into red states and blue states. Red states for Republicans, blue states for Democrats. But I've got news for them too. We worship an awesome God in the blue states, and we don't like federal agents poking around in our libraries in the red states.
It was unexpected. No one thought this skinny kid from the south side of Chicago, who was a state senator, running for the U.S. Senate, was going to be able to have such an incredible global appeal.
We are one people, all of us pledging allegiance to the Stars and Stripes, all of us defending the United States of America.
Barack Obama, little-known state senator from Illinois, gives the speech that beats everybody. He was better than Bill Clinton. He was better than John Kerry. There was nothing like him.
Thank you very much, everybody. God bless.
A phenomenon was born that day, and from that moment on, it was all forward motion for Barack Obama.
I think it is that vision of America that has stayed with him and kept him company all these years and kept him strong.
And I said, this guy's life just changed, and I think our lives may have changed too. And in fact, they did.
It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed a trail towards freedom through the darkest of nights. Yes, we can.
Just 4 years later, Barack Obama is a U.S. senator running for President of the United States.
Yes, we can. It was the call of workers who organized.
His campaign carries the familiar message of hope and unity. And "Yes, we can" becomes the slogan that defines his race for the White House.
Yes, we can to justice and equality.
Throughout 2007 and the run-up to the 2008 campaign, we were very cautious about invoking race in any way in the campaign. We didn't want to communicate to people that somehow Obama was running to become the first black president. He was running to be president, and the fact that he was black was obvious.
Then, in March 2008, in the middle of a grueling primary, tapes surface of Senator Obama's pastor, Reverend Jeremiah Wright, giving explosive, controversial sermons.
No, no, no. Not God bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America.
The Obama campaign faces a major crisis as the sermons dominate campaign coverage.
We want revenge. We want paybacks. And we don't care who gets hurt.
We're all watching these sermons like, what the hell is this?
You know, our opponents were always looking for ways to depict Obama as a kind of scary black man. And it was hard to depict that way. So they seized on Wright as the real Barack Obama, because Obama had called Wright a mentor.
That is controlled by rich white people.
People were confused, and they were trying to sort through how does this pastor who had said such provocative statements, made such provocative statements, be the pastor for someone who has this message of inclusion and we're all in this together. And then Senator Obama had to make a decision. Was he going to explain it in a way that people could hear and understand, or was he going to just try to gut through it?
That Friday night, Senator Obama decides to give a speech on race.
We knew at that point that there was no holding him back, and we probably shouldn't hold him back. So we set it up for the Constitution Center in Philadelphia, figuring that if you're going to go down on a big stage.
There was no way he could get the nomination if he couldn't get over this Jeremiah Wright hurdle. And this was not a cookie-cutter speech.
On Saturday night, he called Jon Favreau, the speechwriter, and he outlined what he wanted to say.
He went on to speak for a full hour on the phone to me. And the former lawyer professor in him came through, because it was like, I want to say 1, this, 1A, this, 1B. So he had the whole outline of the speech in his head.
Favreau wrote all day Sunday and sent his draft to Obama at 8 p.m.
I received an email from him at 3 a.m. Track changes, all blue. There's a couple, like the paragraphs that were mine, were like scene setting, history, a few lines here and there. And his lines were, I can no more disown Reverend Wright than I can my white grandmother, which is not a line that I would have given him, dared to give him.
He campaigned all day Monday in Pennsylvania, and we arrived at a hotel in Philadelphia, and he went off to his room to finish the speech. I went off to the bar to worry. And about 2 or 3 in the morning, I got up and I looked at my BlackBerry, and there was an email from Obama, and there was the speech. And I stood there in the dark, scrolling down and reading this speech. And I emailed him back when I finished it saying, "This is why you should be president."
And I remember him saying, look, I need to do this, and I have to be prepared to accept the consequences. But if I don't tell people who I am, how will they know me? And they have a right to know me. I'm running for the highest office of the land, and they are experiencing a part of my history that they don't understand.
We've heard my former pastor, Jeremiah Wright, use incendiary language to express views that have the potential not only to widen the racial divide, but views that denigrate both the greatness and the goodness of our nation, and that rightly offend white and black alike. But the truth is, that isn't all that I know of the man. The man I met more than 20 years ago is a man who helped introduce me to my Christian faith. A man who spoke to me about our obligations to love one another, to care for the sick, and lift up the poor. I can no more disown him than I can disown my white grandmother, a woman who helped raise me, a woman who sacrificed again and again for me, a woman who loves me as much as she loves anything in this world, but a woman who once confessed her fear of black men who passed her by on the street, and who on more than one occasion has uttered racial or ethnic stereotypes that made me cringe. These people are part of me, and they are part of America, this country that I love.
As he talked in such deeply personal, honest, candid, raw terms about his family, his grandmother, and her fears.
He's calling on some deep bifurcation in his own soul, that he has a white mother, he had a black father, he knows the struggles of both sides in a certain sense of being in both worlds, and he speaks to both worlds.
The fact is that the comments that have been made and the issues that have surfaced over the last few weeks reflect the complexities of race in this country that we've never really worked through. A part of our union that we have not yet made perfect.
The 2008 Philadelphia speech came at a critical moment in the campaign. Candidate Obama turned that into a moment to invoke the American experience. So he took it to a level of national unification. At this divisive moment, national unification. It was beautifully done, brilliantly done, and actually quite an important speech.
It may turn out to be the seminal speech of his presidential campaign. Barack Obama in Philadelphia today took on the issue of race.
By refusing to renounce Reverend Wright, that was in many ways an act of honor for Senator Obama, and it's hard to know how that's going to play out with voters, but it has to count for something.
I think, had he not had the courage to give that honest speech, who knows? I'm not sure that he would have won.
Just a few months later, Barack Obama wins a hard-fought primary and accepts his party's nomination for President of the United States.
Yeah, I think there were certain moments when the American people realized, my God, we really do have an African American who's reached a marker that no one had ever reached before. And the acceptance speech, I think, was that moment.
It was a big tent speech where all are welcome. And I think it was important to him not just to unify the Democratic Party, but really to unify the country.
We were a few days from that speech, which was going to be a historic speech in a stadium with 60,000 people, and we didn't have a speech.
So the Sunday night before the convention speech is Thursday, Obama sends me his draft at like 2 a.m. And it is a combination of our draft and his draft, and it probably would have read it 75, 80 minutes. It was very, very long. So we have 4 days to cut this thing down.
We hammered this out late at night, and Favreau went off to his room with a couple of cans of Red Bull and his computer.
I stayed up all night. It was the only all-nighter that I've ever pulled on an Obama speech.
He really didn't even rehearse the speech until 3 hours before he gave it.
We're in this hotel room. He's practicing the speech. There's a knock on the door. Who's interrupting the candidate's speech prep? So Obama walks to the door, opens the door, and it's a guy with a silver tray. Did anyone order a Caesar salad? And the president looks around, and Axelrod's in the corner, and he just goes, So
he's like, Ax, I'm about to give the speech of my life, and this is my first run through, and you interrupted for a chicken Caesar salad.
And we all just burst out laughing, and the president laughed too. He was about to deliver the speech on the anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech on the March on Washington that King gave. And so we had an allusion to King at the end of the speech. As the president got to that part of the speech, he stopped.
He was overcome, and he started to tear up. And this is something that you rarely see with Obama. He's generally very composed. It was the moment at which the historic nature of what he had accomplished really struck him.
We were all so busy and so frantic because of the campaign that no one really stopped to think about the moment and the weight of the moment. And neither did he. I was with him backstage right before he went out, and he stopped for a minute and needed some time to himself. And he prayed before he went out there.
This country of ours has more wealth than any nation, but that's not what makes us rich. We have the most powerful military on earth, but that's not what makes us strong. Our universities and our culture are the envy of the world, but that's not what keeps the world coming to our shores. Instead, it is that American spirit, that American promise, that pushes us forward even when the path is uncertain, that binds us together in spite of our differences, that makes us fix our eye not on what is seen, but what is unseen, that better place around the bend. That promise is our greatest inheritance.
People were emotive. People were hugging each other. People were wanting to say, I was with you today, because we knew that history had been made. Some kind of glacier had cracked open.
Everybody realizes that this is one of those moments that marks a change in American history.
It is that promise that 45 years ago today brought Americans from every corner of this land to stand together on a mall in Washington before Lincoln's memorial and hear a young preacher from Georgia speak of his dream.
In November 2008, Barack Obama is propelled to the American presidency and gets his chance to make history. Over 8 years, President Obama would give more than 3,500 speeches and statements. Jon Favreau and Cody Keenan led a team of 7 speechwriters to help meet the demand.
Any speechwriter who was working on a speech would get to meet with the president, because you can't do speechwriting through a game of telephone.
If he had 48 hours in a day, I think he'd probably dispense with his speechwriting team and do it himself.
The president writes well under pressure, but he crafts the idea over time. He doesn't type, he handwrites his words, usually at the last minute.
The individual words made a difference, the rhythm, the alliteration, the story that would be told, and only a writer could know those things.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us for the manner in which they lived their lives.
Presidents don't always get to choose what their next speech will be. When tragedy strikes, they have an awesome responsibility to comfort and heal the nation.
Slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
I'm afraid this is very, very grim. There are multiple people dead at the shooting scene, including several children. I'm pretty much being told to expect the worst.
The hardest thing for a president must be when they have to comfort a soldier's family who's died, or they have to comfort people in mass shootings, which no one had ever had to do in the same way as President Obama has. It must have been searing to his soul.
This tradition has begun at the very beginning of the Republic with George Washington, and clearly the Gettysburg Address is a speech meant to console the nation and inspire the nation.
The president said before that Newtown was his worst day in the White House. I think that's true for anybody that was there.
I was there when he found out how many people had died, the 20 children and 6 adults. And the number 20, it took a minute to sink in, and he asked that it be repeated, and I asked that it be repeated. 20 was just unfathomable.
Cody Keenan drafted a quick statement so the president could brief the press and delivered it to the Oval Office.
He teared up a bit and just crossed out a few paragraphs and said, I won't be able to get through that. That's too raw. He did cry in the briefing room when he was doing that statement.
We've endured too many of these tragedies in the past few years. And each time I learn the news, I react not as a president, but as anybody else would, as a parent. And that was especially true today. I know there's not a parent in America who doesn't feel the same overwhelming grief that I do. The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own. So our hearts are broken today.
Two days later, Valerie Jarrett and the president headed to the prayer vigil in Newtown. The president began editing his prepared remarks in the limousine on the ride from the airport to Newtown High School.
And he read the speech, and he put it down on the seat next to him. And he took out a yellow pad of paper and a pen, and he started writing from scratch. And he wrote for an hour and 10 minutes. And there were times where I was afraid to breathe because I didn't want to distract him from what he was doing. And I was scared for him because I couldn't imagine what I would say.
Here in Newtown, I come to offer the love and prayers of a nation. I am very mindful that mere words cannot match the depths of your sorrow, nor can they heal your wounded hearts. Newtown, you are not alone. But we as a nation, we are left with some hard questions. You know, someone once described the joy and anxiety of parenthood as the equivalent of having your heart outside of your body all the time, walking around. This is our first task, caring for our children. It's our first job. If we don't get that right, we don't get anything right.
That quality of empathy is so important to who he is as a person, but also to who he is as an orator, because he brings that passionate sense of identification with people who've suffered loss to his words, and it's very heartfelt.
Can we honestly say that we're doing enough to keep our children, all of them, safe from harm? I've been reflecting on this the last few days, and if we're honest with ourselves, the answer is no. We're not doing enough. And we will have to change. If there's even one step we can take to save another child, or another parent, or another town from the grief that's visited Tucson and Aurora and Oak Creek and Newtown, and communities from Columbine to Blacksburg before that, then surely we have an obligation to try.
I think the bully pulpit doesn't have the same power that it did. Clearly, in these eulogies, when there was a call for, can't we do something about regulating guns, the Congress did not respond.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States.
Humor is so important for a president, probably the most underestimated attribute.
Good evening. I could not be more thrilled to be here tonight at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's a great crowd. They're already laughing.
I think it's a way of cutting across that polarized world that we're living in, too. And it just makes the person seem human.
Folks are saying that with my sagging poll numbers, my fellow Democrats don't really want me campaigning with them. And I don't think that's true, although I did notice the other day that Sasha needed a speaker at Career Day and she invited Bill Clinton. Of course,
we rolled out healthcare.gov. That could have gone better. In 2008, my slogan was, yes, we can. In 2013, my slogan was, Control, Alt, Delete.
The best White House Correspondents' Dinner speech ever is 2011. We had all these jokes ready. It's the Saturday of the dinner. We're supposed to meet with him in the Oval one last time to go over the jokes. And the president's personal secretary says, he's on the phone with the general in Afghanistan, you're gonna have to wait. And we're like, ugh, why do we have to wait? Like, our jokes are so important. The president opens the door, he's tossing a football around. He said, come in. He goes, look, I like all the jokes. I think everything's really funny. There's one joke where the punchline is Bin Laden. And I would just change it to some other foreign sounding name of like Hosni Mubarak. Let's just do that instead. I'm like, that is not funny. He's like, trust me, it's gonna be funny. It's gonna kill, it's gonna be great. We change it, and then right before the dinner, the president called me and said, I'm gonna remember this myself, but just in case, would you also add at the very end of the speech, God bless America and may God keep our troops safe. I was like, that's an interesting thing to add at the end of the dinner. And sure enough, the general in Afghanistan that he was on the phone with was General McRaven, and he had just given the order for the Bin Laden mission.
Let me close on a serious note. We have incredible young men and women who are serving in uniform overseas in the most extraordinary of circumstances, and we are reminded of their courage and their valor. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
Presidents don't just make history. They're also called on to honor milestones that have come before. In 2015, President Obama marked an important anniversary in our country's civil rights struggle. On an overcast Sunday morning in March 1965, John Lewis led 600 others in a peaceful protest march across a bridge in Selma, Alabama.
At each step along our nation's history, we inevitably have times of turmoil and stress, and that's what change is all about. It's messy, it's hard, it's difficult, but that when ordinary people come together, they can do, in fact, extraordinary things.
For decades, Southern states used special rules to block African Americans from registering to vote.
We made a decision to march from Selma to Montgomery, to dramatize to the nation and to the world that African Americans in the state of Alabama and throughout the South wanted to register to vote. We started walking in an orderly, peaceful, nonviolent fashion through the streets of Selma. Orderly, quiet, almost eerie.
At the end of that bridge, the Alabama State Troopers met the non-violent protesters with brutal force.
They came toward us, beating us with nightsticks and trampling us with horses. They released their tear gas. I remember being hit in the head by a state trooper with a nightstick. That Sunday became known as Bloody Sunday. "50
years after the Bloody Sunday March, President Obama came to Selma.
Selma's my favorite speech of the president's, and he threw himself into it because it is just the purest distillation of his vision of this country. It was probably one of his more patriotic speeches, if not the most patriotic. What greater form of patriotism is there than the belief that America is not yet finished? We actually had a snow day that Thursday, and the federal government was closed. The speech was a Saturday, which ended up being great because I got to come into work and all of his meetings were canceled, so we got to go back and forth on 3 or 4 drafts. And he always wants to go through one last draft on the plane whenever we're heading somewhere, especially on a big speech. So he'd made a few final line edits, sent the speech. And we loaded up the motorcade to drive to the site. We're coming up over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and someone in my car had said, "Wow, we're actually on the bridge." And I was like, "This is great." And as we crested it over the top and started looking down, you just saw, 20,000 people down there waiting, and a big American flag. And I think everyone just kind of took a breath. I remember it being quiet for a second because anyone could understand the gravity of what that meant.
Everybody in my car gasped as we went over. And you could just see the sea of people waiting breathlessly for President Obama to come for this commemoration.
To stand there and look at this unbelievable crowd, Black, white, Latino, Asian American, Native American, young children, older people. With President Barack Obama, it was too much.
If someone had told me when we were crossing this bridge that one day I would be back here introducing the first African-American president, I would have said, "You're crazy, you're out of your mind, you don't know what you're talking about." President Barack Obama.
You see that the baton is passed from one generation to the next with mutual respect and admiration.
It is a rare honor in this life to follow one of your heroes. And John Lewis is one of my heroes. There are places and moments in America where this nation's destiny has been decided. Many are sites of war: Concord and Lexington, Appomattox, Gettysburg. Others are sites that symbolize the daring of America's character: Independence Hall and Seneca Falls, Kitty Hawk and Cape Canaveral. Selma is such a place. And one afternoon, 50 years ago, so much of our turbulent history, the stain of slavery and anguish of civil war, the yoke of segregation and tyranny of Jim Crow, the death of 4 little girls in Birmingham, and the dream of a Baptist preacher, all that history met on this bridge. It was not a clash of armies, but a clash of wills. A contest to determine the true meaning of America. What they did here will reverberate through the ages. Not because the change they won was preordained. Not because their victory was complete, but because they proved that nonviolent change is possible. That love and hope can conquer hate.
It was the president's idea to come up with kind of the roll call of America at the end. We are Sojourner Truth and Fannie Lou Hamer. We're the slaves that built the White House, immigrants across Rio Grande. So he just said, he said, "This is what I'm looking for. Go back to your desk and make me a list. Find me some America."
We know America is what we make of it. Look at our history. We are Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea, pioneers who braved the unfamiliar, followed by a stampede of farmers and miners and entrepreneurs and hucksters. That's our spirit. That's who we are. We're Sojourner Truth and Fannie Lou Hamer, women who could do as much as any man and then some. We're the fresh-faced GIs who fought to liberate a continent. And we're the Tuskegee Airmen and the Navajo code talkers and the Japanese Americans who fought for this country even as their own liberty had been denied. We are Jackie Robinson enduring scorn and spiked cleats and pitches coming straight to his head and stealing home in the World Series anyway.
The president added in, "We are Jackie Robinson." That's one of the few moments where he actually chokes up a little bit. Because I think it hits home, to be the first black man to do something while everyone's throwing baseballs at your head.
I think we all are called to do something. We all are called to play a role. I believe that both Martin Luther King Jr. and President Barack Obama have been touched, have been inspired by the spirit of history to move America and the world community to a higher level.
If you think nothing's changed in the past 50 years, ask somebody who lived through the Selma or Chicago or Los Angeles of the 1950s.
Our country's a different country, and we are different people. We're better people.
And that's what the young people here today and listening all across the country must take away from this day. You are America, unconstrained by habit and convention, unencumbered by what is, because you're ready to seize what ought to be. Because Selma shows us that America's not the project of any one person. Because the single most powerful word in our democracy is the word we. We the people. We shall overcome. Yes, we can. That word is owned by no one. It belongs to everyone. Oh, what a glorious task we are given to continually try to improve this great nation of ours.
If there's one speech that I hope school kids are forced to read someday, I would like it to be Selma.
3 months after commemorating civil rights progress in Selma, the president is reminded of how much work remains to perfect the Union.
The nation is waking up to news of a senseless act of violence in Charleston, South Carolina. Right now, the search is on for a white gunman who entered a black church last night and started shooting.
On June 17th, a white supremacist brutally murders 9 African Americans at Mother Emanuel AME Church. The parishioners are shot during an evening prayer service.
I was in the White House late one night when, again, news of a shooting started coming through in the church, in a black church basement. This one was slightly different from the rest because now you had questions of race involved and the Confederate flag, more debates and racial divisions laid bare.
The shooter in Charleston hated all black people. He hated his president because of the color of his skin.
In a startling turn of events, the families of the victims forgive the shooter at a court hearing.
I would never be able to hold her again, but I forgive you.
Every fiber in my body hurts, but may God have mercy on you.
And they were truly practicing their religion by turning another cheek and saying, I'm not going to let hatred take over me. Keep in mind, the AME Church is the historic Freedom Church. This was the church of Rosa Parks, the church of Frederick Douglass, the church of Harriet Tubman. That particular church in Charleston was a bellwether place for the freedom movement, and that moved the president.
The president said, let's make a speech about grace, the idea of grace. So I went and sat down and started writing, and wrote out the lyrics to Amazing Grace about halfway through the speech.
Keenan worked nonstop on the speech for 2 days before sharing a draft with the president.
The first 2 pages, he makes line edits to. The second 2 pages, each one had just a big cross through all of it, all gone. But he wasn't mad. This is Barack Obama, this is what he does. And he handed me 3 handwritten pages that he'd churned out in just those 5 hours. Probably less, because he probably had dinner with the girls first, too. So I apologized, and he said, "Don't you dare apologize. You gave me the scaffolding I needed to work with. This is a good collaboration." And then he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Besides, I wrote a book on this stuff. And once you've been grappling with these issues for 55 years, you'll know what you want to say, too."
On the way, he mentioned to those of us, including the First Lady, he said, "I'm thinking about singing Amazing Grace." And we went, "Really?" And so I said, "Well, if you want to sing, you should sing." And the First Lady said, "Do whatever makes you comfortable."
For too long, we've been blind to the unique mayhem that gun violence inflicts upon this nation. For too long, we've been blind to the way past injustices continue to shape the present. That's right. Perhaps it causes us to examine what we're doing to cause some of our children to hate.
There's nothing more important for the words, not simply to be in people's hearts and minds, but to do something that changes the nature of the country.
For too long, we were blind to the pain that the Confederate flag stirred in too many of our citizens. As we all have to acknowledge, the flag has always represented more than just ancestral pride. Yes, sir. For many, black and white, that flag was a reminder of systemic oppression and racial subjugation. Removing the flag from this state's capital would not be an act of political correctness. It would not be an insult to the valor of Confederate soldiers. It would simply be an acknowledgement that the cause for which they fought, the cause of slavery, was wrong.
Charleston was a turning point, a flashing point, that we are going to have to bury some of that old Confederate history.
By taking down that flag, we express God's grace. By making the moral choice to change, we express God's grace. Amen. Amen. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch.
There seemed to be a sea change. You felt the wave break when President Obama gave that speech.
And when the Confederate flag came down, it was a moment of healing and a moment where the words really did produce the outcome that you're hoping they did. So it came full circle.
Words are powerful things. And one of the things about Barack Obama is that he really values words. He understands the power of words and how to deploy them in ways that match the moment. It's an unusual gift.
Oh, I think there's no question that he'll go down in history as one of the best writers and orators in the presidency. Mainly because he used the power of words at critical moments, and they touched the hearts of people. They touched chords. They touched emotions in people.
Someday there will be the collected speeches of Barack Obama, and I think they'll tell us more about our hopes, dreams, aspirations, and dark realities than any other document to represent that era.
There's a dignity to the words that you'll see when you put all those speeches together, but I think his presidency will be remembered as well for the dignity of the man.